"How are you, son?" asked the man in a trembling voice. "How's Mum? Why don't you call me at all?" "What do you want?" asked William glumly. "I missed you. You're my family, and I—" William didn't listen any further and hung up. The boy went out on the balcony, took a broad breath of the heady spring air, and tried to calm down. His father called frequently these days, constantly reproaching him for indifference, counting how long they had not seen each other. But William could not relate to him in any other way, and did not even want to call him Daddy. And this story began a few years ago, one beautiful day in March, when William, from an ordinary teenager of 15, turned into a working man. And even though he was only a delivery boy, he was terribly proud of the fact that he would earn his own money for his mother's anniversary present. "Don't expect a lot of money," warned his colleague right away. "You're on foot, so you'll earn money only for cigarettes and coffee." "It'll be fine, don't be afraid," laughed the guy, and clapped William on the shoulder. "I don't smoke," muttered William, and fixing the straps of his backpack, resolutely went outside. William had nothing to fear. He was well oriented in his district, and just once he looked at the list of addresses, could mentally build the best route. In addition, food delivery turned out to be a fascinating pastime. At the first address, he was met by a group of similar-looking teenagers. "Pizza's here!" they shouted in unison. "Triplets," a middle-aged man sighed wearily, holding out money to William. "They even have the same thoughts. They don't want to eat normal food. They just want pizzas and burgers. Oh, maybe you're hungry. Let me put you some pink salmon with pumpkin in the container." William shook his head, trying to refuse, but he felt so sorry for the upset father of many children, and the delicious pink salmon with golden crust looked very attractive, and he agreed. At the second address, the door was opened by a grim-looking girl, who quickly snatched the package from William's hands and hastily counted out several bills, handed them to William with the words, "Here's for the order, and another 20 on top, if you quickly disappear from here so my husband wouldn't notice you, okay?" Noticing the boy's surprised look, she briefly explained that she didn't know how to cook and ordered takeout, and if her husband found out about it, he would be very upset. "Wouldn't it be easier to learn how to cook? It's simple. Would you like me to teach you?" "I'm going to be a cook," smiled William. At first the young woman hesitated, but then, after thinking about it, she accepted, and they agreed that William would come twice a week on Wednesdays and Thursdays at 4 o'clock and teach her how to cook. William was excited about another part-time job. He had loved cooking since he was a child and was even going to go to culinary school, but his father never understood his aspirations. Ben often angrily ridiculed his son for wanting to become a cook, especially when he came home drunk, believing that a real man should have a more masculine, in his opinion, profession. On such occasions, William simply shrugged his shoulders and went to his room, trying not to react to his father's angry outbursts. And how could anyone listen to a man who himself had no job for a long time? He had once been a good carpenter, but then he quarrelled with his superiors, quit, and out of spite drank. Since then he could not get a job. Either he disliked the boss or the size of the salary. William's mother found him a job a couple of times, but after a week of work, Ben usually took a sick leave and fell on the couch, pretending exhaustion by hard work. He did not mind watching TV, drinking beer, and demanding more attention because of exhaustion. "I'd rather let him sit at home," said the mother tiredly to William one day. "You see, when he works, he doesn't let anybody live." "Sure, he thinks he's a great breadwinner, as if no one else works here," sneered William then. "Don't say that, he's your father after all," asked Sophia. "He used to be a tall, shoulder-length, excellent carpenter. All the girls chased him, and he chose me, an ordinary country girl with no money and no prospects. Sophia smiled dreamily at her memories, and a few days later she found a second job. Now she was getting up even earlier to have time to mop the floors at the cafe around the corner, then running to her main job at school, and in the evening she sat down to knit things for customers. The son sadly began to notice how, until recently, the beautiful and young mother quickly began to fade from constant fatigue. It pained William to watch her, emaciated, with bluish shadows under her eyes, having long forgotten what cosmetics and beautiful hair were, struggling at several jobs, refusing to buy new things, and still lacking money. Of course, a cleaner and a teacher do not earn a lot. In addition, the woman was embarrassed to set a higher price for knitting. But instead of helping his wife, Ben only lashed out with contemptuous reproaches. "She's a loser. She can't do anything right. That's the reason why she doesn't make any money," he said one day after drinking a little. "And you?" said William. "Me?" The boy wanted to say that if his father got a job, it would be much easier for his mother, and she wouldn't have to feed her deadbeat husband. But he kept silent. He had realized a long time ago that it was useless to talk to his father about this subject. "Well, why are you quiet?" snapped his father. "Are you deaf, or have you swallowed your tongue?" With indignation, he even jumped up from his favourite couch and swung at his son, but froze with his hand raised, encountering the calm and brave gaze of the teenager, who was not afraid of him at all. William glanced at his father and, shrugging his shoulders, went to his room, leaving his parent in complete bewilderment. And now, delivered another order, William checked the list and realized that he had left only one, but expensive and bulky order. There were fruits and wine and hot salads and all kinds of appetizers. William sighed noisily and thought that someone could afford to eat like that, while he and his mother mostly ate potatoes and pasta, and they rarely had meat or vegetables on the table because of the high cost. No, he was not at all angry at those who lived better than they did, but he had not eaten anything since this morning and was hungry. When he thought about the container with the salmon, a gift from a client, his mood improved, and when he imagined how soon he would receive his first salary and be able to please his mother with a good birthday present, he even smiled. At the thought of his mother, William felt warm at heart. She was 40, she was still a young woman, and the boy wanted to give her something that would make her remember that she was still young and beautiful, and most importantly, that she did not have to live that dull life next to her husband, his father. If his mother decided to divorce him, she would not have to work so hard, and he, William, would be able to help her, because now he had a job, and then there he would have another even better. In his musings he did not notice how he got to the right address. Anticipating the end of the day, William almost flew up the stairs and impatiently rang the doorbell. When the door was opened, William saw an imposing man in a silk robe. "Young man, why have you been so long?" he began grudgingly, and then stopped short. "Hi, Dad," said William coldly. For some reason, William was not surprised at all. He had probably been expecting something like this from his father for a long time, but he hadn't expected it to be revealed in such a stupid way. But that wasn't all. "Honey, is that our order brought in?" came a woman's voice from somewhere in the back of the apartment, and a young girl with wet hair and a short towel wrapped around her thin waist looked out from behind his father's shoulder. William was stunned into silence, and Ben, taking his order from his son, said that they would discuss everything at home and closed the door. That evening, the father, with embarrassed head down, awkwardly tried to explain to his son the reasons for his behaviour, hoping that William would understand him. He explained that his wife was not as attractive as before. She had stopped taking care of herself and had become unkind, so naturally he had found another woman. Hearing this, William could not stand it, and for the first time he dared to express to his father openly all that he thought of him. "My mum works all day long, exhausting herself, so that you can continue to lie on the couch and whine. And instead of helping her and getting a job, you dare cheat on her? That's mean." "Well, That's enough." Sophia's quiet voice interrupted him, taking father and son surprised. Ben fidgeted, trying to make excuses, but she didn't want to hear anything. "Get your things and get out," pronounced Sophia carefully with each word. "Were you eavesdropping on us?" suddenly exploded Ben. "Well, what did you achieve?" "I wasn't eavesdropping. I just wanted to call you for dinner." "Pack your things and go," replied Sophia calmly, and left the room. She returned in a couple of minutes, holding the travelling bag. While Sophia gathered his belongings, Ben repeated like a mantra that he was not going anywhere. William silently watched everything, sitting on the edge of the couch, knowing that there was nothing to talk about. After gathering all his things, Sophia looked menacingly at her husband. William stood beside her. Seeing such a picture, Ben realized that he had lost. A couple of weeks after Ben left, Sophia went to the hairdresser and manicurist for the first time in a long time, and a year later, the woman was simply unrecognizable. That tired, silent woman, tortured by endless work, was no longer there. Now it was a bright, beautiful and full of life beauty, and her cheerful laughter was often heard in the house. William looked at his happy mother and could not get enough of her. One evening she came home smiling mysteriously with a huge bouquet of flowers. William did not question her about anything, but guessed that she had an admirer. Bouquets appeared almost every day since then, and his mother smiled more and more mysteriously and dreamily. Meanwhile, they had not heard from Ben for a year, and William even wondered how he could suddenly disappear so quickly and without a trace. For so many years they could not get rid of him, and then suddenly it was as if he disappeared, and they did not even accidentally meet anywhere. In the end, William decided that his father had simply left town. However, about another year later, Ben suddenly showed up. He called from an unknown number, and William did not even immediately recognize his voice, which had somehow become deaf and hoarse. His father said something about how he had finally understood everything and rethought his whole life. He repented that he had been unfair to William and to Sophia, that he realized how much he had been guilty of loafing around and not helping his family. "Did you get a job?" interrupted the son coldly, his father's stream of eloquence. "Oh, William, but you know how hard it is to find a job with a decent wage. And I'm a professional, and I will not allow anyone to humiliate me like that. And anyway, It's clear with you," replied William harshly, and hung up.